Sometimes you lack motivation to start reading in English, and sometimes you just don't know what to read. It's totally okay if you struggle with the same things. This video is for you. In this video, I want to mention 5 super interesting books that you can read in English to get back into reading, and also give you a few tips when it comes to reading in a foreign language in general, not just in English. The books I'll be mentioning later in the video are suitable for people who can already read in English and feel somewhat confident. Maybe you just don't know which book to read, because there are so many books where the vocabulary is way too complicated, but the books I've chosen have great vocabulary, so I hope you like them. But what can you do if you're a complete beginner in a foreign language? Well, if you're a beginner, consider reading graded readers first. Graded readers are books that are adapted for language learners, which makes them easier to read and understand. They also tend to use everyday vocabulary, which makes them super fun and enjoyable to read. The next step you could take is reading books for kids. Some people say that children's books are a little bit too difficult for non-native speakers, but I would say that it all depends on a book. For example, recently I got this super cool book. It's called Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. Looks like this, and honestly, it has a whole series. It is definitely like a kid's book because it's very thin and it has a lot of pictures. For example, here's just one page. Like, you literally only have one sentence. Pigeon at the wheel. I mean, it's not even a sentence. But for example, this one is a sentence. I never get to do anything. I mean, obviously the problem with these books is sometimes they are way too simple. They have just like a sentence or two, but I personally like children's books. That's why I purchased them. It's not necessarily because, oh my God, I want to learn English. Obviously, this book is way too simple for me right now, but it's more like, oh, I like kids' books. I like looking through pictures. I like reading them, like, honestly. So it all depends on you. If you feel like it's gonna work for you, then please go ahead and purchase a children's book. When it comes to Spanish, for example, these are the books I'm reading right now. These are already books for kids, but not like super little babies, because it looks like this, and obviously you have a lot of text here. And I like these books because, again, we have pictures, we have text, but at the same time, it's not too difficult. And usually chapters are super short, because we usually struggle with this problem as non-native speakers. We get bored because the chapter is too long, like so many new words, and you're like, oh my God, I can't read this anymore. But this, like, actually 2 pages is 1 chapter, and again, it makes it super easy to read. You've also probably heard people say, oh, you should read a book in English if you have read it in your native language, for example. And yes, that also might work. For me, one of my favorite books of all time is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I love this book. I read it in my native language, Russian. I've read it in English multiple times. And now I purchased this book in Spanish. And so when I open this book and I see all of the pictures and like all of these words in Spanish, I'm excited because I know what this book is about. I know that I love this book so much, and that's why I'm excited to read it. And obviously the next stage that every single language learner wants to get to is reading like actual literature in a foreign language. This book is for adults, and this book is very thick and it's all in Spanish. To be completely honest, it's kind of hard for me to read sometimes, but I also think that for me the problem was I started reading this book when I just started learning Spanish, and I was not ready at all. Because for example, on December 21st, 2022, look how many different words I didn't know. It's crazy. And now when I look at this page, I'm like, I know all these words. So again, this proves my point that it's absolutely important to choose the book that is right for you. You open the book and you see, okay, maybe it's too difficult for me, it's too hard, then don't read it. Because what happened to me last year, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna read like 1-2 pages, and then I started reading the book. I read the first page, the second page, the third page, and by the 4th page I was like, I can't. It's not happening. It's way too hard for me. And now I came back to this book and I'm reading it all over again, and it's a lot easier for me. It's a lot easier and it's a lot more enjoyable because my level right now is a lot higher. So how can you determine if a book is right for you? The level is not too easy or not too difficult. If you have a chance to go to the bookstore and look through an actual physical copy, like, look through the pages, obviously it's kind of the best idea because it will even motivate you to read. Once we pick up a book, we're like, oh my god, I want to read. But I understand that sometimes it doesn't work. Maybe you don't like buying paper books, or maybe you don't have this possibility. So for that, I recommend Amazon. And you don't even have to purchase a book there. All you need to do is go to Amazon.com, find a book you want to read, and then look inside this book. Most of the books on Amazon now have this feature, and it's super fun for non-native speakers because this way you can look inside a book for free and kind of read the first maybe just 1 or 2 pages. And this way you can determine if this book is too easy or too difficult for you. To be honest, I use this feature all the time, even when I read in English, for example, because I read like a lot of different books in English. When it comes to like, oh, is it easy, is it hard, it's not even that important for me anymore. What is important is that I like the book when I'm reading in English, because my level is pretty high right now. However, if I want to choose a book in Spanish, I use Amazon. I look inside this book and I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand what it is about. I feel like it's interesting and I feel like it's the right level for me. Recently, I've also discovered this amazing thing that we call audiobooks. I have used audiobooks in the past, but the problem was I was just listening to a book, obviously, because it was an audiobook. But now what I do is I listen and read at the same time. You know how like when we were kids, our parents would read to us, and sometimes imagine like your parent opens up a book and they read it to you, and you can kind of follow. You can follow the text and you can read together with them. So this is exactly the same thing that I'm doing right now in Spanish, sometimes in English when I use audiobooks. Honestly, it helps me stay more focused because sometimes there are a lot of difficult words, maybe something too scientific, and it's so easy for your mind to wander somewhere. But this technique really helps me stay present. And you guys know that I love talking to people about the books I read. And even when I have language classes, for example, English classes or Spanish classes, I always talk to my teachers about the books I'm reading. And I especially love learning on LiveXP because there I can find a teacher who has the same interest as me. I have been learning Spanish on LiveXP for months now, and I really like it. For example, on their website, you can choose English if you want to improve your English, and then click on interests. For me, it's literature and yoga, and here are all the teachers who are also interested in literature and yoga. This makes classes with my teachers super interesting because we can talk about something we both enjoy. And of course, on LiveXP, you can study a lot of different languages with professional teachers. My Spanish teacher, Eric, is absolutely amazing. He helps me with my vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar in Spanish. Thanks to him, I discovered a really useful website, ingo.com, where I can read articles that match my level. Learning a foreign language with a native speaker like Eric is like unlocking a secret vault with tips and insights that you won't find anywhere else. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. You have to try it and see the magic happen for yourself. And one more thing that makes language learning on LiveXP super enjoyable is that all the teachers have the same prices if you subscribe to LiveXP. And to make your experience even more enjoyable, you can use my discount code Veronika English 30 to get 30% off of your subscription. If you're using LiveXP for the very first time, you can use the link in my bio and get your first class on LiveXP for only 99 cents. Now let's move on to intensive reading versus extensive reading. Which one is better? You guys are always asking me this question. Veronika, is it better if I just open a book and read it, if I don't worry about all the new words, or do I actually have to pause when I see a new word and I have to use my dictionary, I have to translate the word? Which approach is better? Ultimately, I think you have to use both of these methods. It honestly depends on your mood, because sometimes I don't feel like translating every single word I don't know. I feel a little bit lazy, and I think it's better if I practice extensive reading, if I read for enjoyment. But if I feel like I'm super motivated, I want to read, I want to study, I'm gonna practice intensive reading, which means you actually like look up every single words, maybe you see see like a new grammar structure and you try to understand it. So for example, if I'm practicing extensive reading, if I'm reading for enjoyment, it might look something like this. La casa no era lo bastante grande para tanta gente y la vida resultaba realmente incómoda para todos. En total, solo había 2 habitaciones y una sola cama. La cama estaba reservada a los 4 abuelos porque eran muy viejos y estaban cansados, tan cansados que nunca salían de ella. So as you can see here, I was like not sure what this word actually meant. En total, solo. Oh my god, I know this word. Okay, whatever, just forget about it. For example, let's say, I don't know, honestly here I know all the words, but let's imagine I didn't know what the word incómoda meant, right? I was like, incómoda. Again, if I'm practicing for enjoyment, probably I would not be translating this word. I will just continue reading because for me right now, what is more important is reading more pages and more words. However, if I were to practice intensive reading, I would be like, incómoda, what does this word mean? I would go to the dictionary, I will translate this word and be like, okay, so I would use my computer, I would go to Google Translate, I would type in incómoda, and I will see that the translation is uncomfortable. And I would be like, okay, perfect. So the life, because of that, was very uncomfortable, like something like that. The difference is now I'm trying to understand the meaning of every single word. And now it's time to move on to the actual books. I always recommend people start with books for young adults because they're a lot easier to understand than classics, for example. Actually, I think this book I have right here, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, well, maybe it's not really for young adults, more for kids, but I feel like young adults and adults all enjoy this book. This book is just amazing. You can use the website called goodreads.com to search for new books for young adults or children. This is a great website because there you can see reviews for a book you want to read and you know if people liked it, if they didn't, what they thought about it. And also you can see like the genre of this book, you can read the short description of this book. So I highly recommend this website. So the first book I've chosen is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. John Green is one of those authors that I highly recommend checking out. If you're trying to get back into reading, if you need motivation, if you want to read books and not feel like, oh my god, I'm drowning in all of this new vocabulary, then John Green is the author for you. The Fault in Our Stars is probably the most famous book he has. So let's go to Amazon together right now and read kind of like the first paragraph. Always try to do it. It's super easy and super fun. Late in the winter of my 17th year, my mother decided I was depressed. Presumably because I rarely left the house, spent quite a lot of time in bed, read the same book over and over, ate infrequently, and devoted quite a bit of my abundant free time to thinking about death. So the first paragraph is like, interesting, like what is it gonna be about? And as you can see, it's pretty easy to read. Yes, we have a few words here like presumably, we have infrequently, also abundant, but all of these words are super useful. So obviously books are there to teach you new words. You will always find a word or two you don't know. The most important thing is you don't feel too tired and bored because of that. The next book is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I like this book because some of the chapters are written like a letter, so this way you can kind of read the thoughts of a different person and it's pretty fun. So again, as usual, we're going to Amazon and we're gonna check out the first paragraph to make sure this book is the right level for us. Dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try to sleep with that person at that party, even though you could have. Please don't try to figure out who she is because then you might figure out who I am. And I really don't want you to do that. I will call people by different names or generic names because I don't want you to find me. I didn't enclose a return address for the same reason. I mean nothing bad by this, honest. So as you can see here, we can already feel like this book is gonna be pretty informal, like short sentences like honest or I mean nothing bad by this. It's actually the way native speakers speak English in real life. Book number 3 is 13 Reasons Why. And actually, guys, if you like watching movies, you have probably noticed that all of these books I'm mentioning were also used as an inspiration for the movies with the same names. It's great because you'll be reading a book and then later when you're done, you can just watch a movie if you want to. So again, let's go to Amazon and read the first few sentences. Sir, she repeats, how soon do you want it to get there? I rub 2 fingers hard over my left eyebrow. The throbbing has become intense. It doesn't matter, I say. Throbbing, probably a new word for many of you. However, it's a very useful word. If you have a wound, you can say, oh, it's throbbing, like a very uncomfortable feeling. Or if you have a headache, you can say, throbbing pain. So highly recommend to check out this book. Book number 4 is called It's Kind of a Funny Story. Great book with a lot of humor. Have you ever noticed how on all the ads on TV, people are watching TV? My friend is like, pass it, son. My other friend is like, no, yo, that's true. My other friend is like, there's always somebody on a couch, unless it's an allergy ad and they're in a field or on a horse on the beach. So as you can see, this book is super informal. A lot of informal words saying my friend is like. For a book, it's extremely informal. And then my other friend is like, instead of saying my other friend said, like something like this. So yeah, highly recommend it. And finally, the book that I also wanted to include here is Lock and Key. The genre of this book is romance, and I know that maybe some of you guys don't like it, but I also know that some of you do. And also, usually books that are kind of in this genre of romance are easier to read because they're all about love, they're all about those like emotions and conversations between people. For example, this book by Colleen Hoover is a romance book, and honestly, I liked it. Like, it's great. Originally, it was published in English, so this is the translated version. Even though maybe it's not the most interesting book because it's all about love and like, you know, all of those things, and sometimes it's quite boring if not written well, Colleen Hoover really does know how to make it interesting. So it all depends. Not all romance books are boring. And finally, Jamie said as I pushed the door open, we come to the main event, your room. I was braced for pink, ruffles and quilting, or maybe even applique, which was probably kind of unfair. But then again, I didn't know my sister anymore, much less her decorating style. With total strangers, it had always been my policy to respect the worst. Usually they, and those that you knew best for that matter, did not disappoint. So here, I don't even know this word, applique. I'm pretty sure maybe I'm not pronouncing correctly, but I think it's a French word, so let's check. Okay, it's like needlework. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I pronounced it correctly, so that's great. Even from the first paragraph, we have so many great words like ruffles and quilting, or maybe even applique. So it all depends on what you like. Some books are more descriptive. They describe a lot of things, the environment, clothes, people's characters, and other books are more like personality driven. They're all about a character's personality, their thoughts, and their conversations with other people. So I think it's gonna be it for this video. Now I hope you know how to read books in English or in a different foreign language effectively. Sometimes there will be moments when you don't have any motivation, and it's totally okay. You can practice extensive reading, for example. Just don't worry about all the words and just read. Also, don't forget to use the link below and give LiveXP a try. The first lesson is only 99 cents. If you're ready to subscribe, don't forget to use my discount code Veronika English 30 to get a 30% discount. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video.